Hello, this is Lisalee and welcome to my channel. So today we are going to be looking at the year ahead for water signs. And the reason I'm going to be separating it by element is because I encourage you to actually take some time and learn. It's really good to learn astrology. I think it's important to understand that you have a big chart and that there are different energies interacting with different ways. And so the reason I wanted to do these readings by element, and I'm going to shuffle. I'm going to interrupt myself because I'm going to shuffle with you here because you're here and that your energy is with me. We're in an experience together. You know, there's not really time. This is going to be a timeless reading whenever you find it. But we're looking at the year ahead, and we're actually going to spend a little time with the year behind too, so we can avoid taking some of the things that have hurt us or been limiting or difficult from the old year into the new year. We're going to work on that. So I'm going to shuffle with you here, and I'm going to try not to be too loud about it. If you are noise sensitive, I got to get like a cloth or something for this. And until I do, you might want to turn the volume down on a little bit. So I'll try to be quiet though. So the reason I like to break this up by elements is because you have fire in your chart some places you have water in your chart, and you can go through your chart. And again, it's not that hard to learn. I encourage you, and if you, I'll see if I can find a friend who can do like a course. It's my best friend and a mentor in many ways. She's like a genius astrologer, but I'll figure out a way if you did, like, there's a way to research on the internet, but if you have trouble, like maybe I'll try to figure something out. Anyway, the point being, you can look at where the different elements fall in your house, where you have water signs, where you have fire signs, where you have air signs, where you have earth signs, and try to think about the reading in relationship to those elements. And of course, your sun sign and your big three, like especially. And so this is why I'm doing it this way and not doing the full 12 signs in the zodiac, although I would love to have time to do that one day. I might. All right, so let's go ahead and continue the shuffle. And I want to start us off, and I'll put timestamps below because there's gonna, the shuffle is one thing, and I want us to actually spend some time with the challenges of last year, and they might be with us current, it might not be something that you are just leaving behind. We're going to look at the challenges first, and then we're going to look at hope, and we're going to look at what's coming in the way of what are the likely trajectories if we can move some of the challenges and the blockages out of the way, and what are the blockages and the challenges, because I want you to begin to think about hope and challenge as not being it's not all hope and no challenge, I want us to start to have a better relationship with challenge, because I think if we can remove the fear from challenge, that you're likely going to be unstoppable. So we're going to start by spending a little time with the challenges of last year, and how not to bring some of those challenges into the new year, and how to resolve some of that. And that might be half the reading, and the other half reading is going to be hope. So if what you're really needing right now, because maybe it's not a moment for shadow work for you, if you really just want to go right to hope, that's okay. You can skip the part that's a challenge, go to hope. Maybe you need the hope before you can look at the challenges. I'll timestamp the difference below. So let's go ahead and begin, and we're going to look at challenges first. Looking at challenges first. Okay. Wow. Well, look at this. All right. Well, the Fool has been on the bottom of the deck almost every reading that we've done, that I've been doing with my channel. Every reading we've done together, we keep getting the Fool on the bottom of the deck. This is beautiful. Is there a commercial behind me? Oh man, I left YouTube on with music, and I think there's going to be just give me 1 second. I love that this is imperfect because we're not, entertainment quality is not really what we're doing. We're just going to learn together. We're going to stop. We're going to mess with stuff. And right now I'm messing with getting rid of commercial. So hold on. Oh, it's gone. I wish that it's good. You know what? I want to post the person who made that video. And so if the commercial ran and they got a little bit of income, then there's the abundance for everybody right there. So sorry about that. Now, now that the third wall is broken, and we want it to be, there's two things. Okay, no, I'm not going to make this so long that I bring that in. I've like, you know, let me open this channel up and get out of the way, because I get really excited about stuff that I'm seeing, and sometimes I can just like jump a little bit too much. So with the 3 of water, let me take a look at this. This is really interesting. Actually, this is the, let's see my sleeves today. Let's get these out of the way. I was like, I should wear something nice for the, let's see, this is looking like, no, this is actually looking more like 3 of Swords. Again, like I'm using the deck without this is a word that like wants to get stuck in my mouth. Signifiers. So we're talking about the challenge of last year and the lesson that we can take out of it and leave the fear in it behind is a relationship with despair, where it's almost big, you know, in the heart of deprivation. Like this is, we're talking about challenges, we're talking about the hard stuff, and we're going to be really descriptive with it. The heartbreak of deprivation, it has been with you for a really long time, and I don't want to say that it has become a companion, except that it's become a little bit of a companion. We spend time with feeling states, and one of the main things I'm learning working with the Greek pantheon is just like sometimes being able to personify these feeling states helps us understand the relationship that we have with them, what we're giving our time and our energy to, and whether or not it's constructive or reductive. Like, and reductive's so weird. I'm just gonna get out of my own way. So like Spirit is basically saying that like you want to, especially if you were, this is one of those big issues for people who grew up with a lot of neglect. There is a tendency to overcorrect always with everything. And so if you grew up with a ton of neglect, nobody cared about your emotions, like your emotions were always too big or too much, you know, it had to be about somebody else's emotion. Who among you, and I feel this is very strong, like literally flinches when I say the word selfish, because you grew up in an environment where all of your emotional needs were categorized as selfish. And so there's this way in which the only comfort, spending time with some of these feelings of sadness, spending time with these feelings of disappointment, spending time with, you know, feelings that nobody helped you sort of process and attend to in a comforting way. This has become a type of companion that wears the t-shirt of self-care to a degree where it's because Spirit is saying, especially with neglect, you don't know how to take care of yourself. And so just being with these feelings and attending to them and not ignoring them, that is important. And that's what we're supposed to do with our feelings. But there's a way in which we can look at the depth of these feelings and the bigness of these feelings and spend a lot of time there, you know, in relationship to them, so that even when we've done the healing work and even when we move through these feelings, we're still going back to that well, because it's a familiar place and there's a comforting quality, but it's a comfort that hurts. And it's also a comfort that keeps you somewhat limited. That said, it has its place. It's a comfort that brings you to enlightenment as well. And so Spirit is basically saying, like, there's no shame in this. This, you know, the bigger the pain, the more time you spend with this, the comfort that it brings. If you don't develop almost like a relationship that can be a little bit of a dependency, a place where you go when you need to feel safe instead of a place that it feels safe and peaceful. You know, Spirit is saying that this has its place in bringing enlightenment. And so if you've had a lot of pain and a lot of sitting with it, you have a level of enlightenment that is commensurate to that, which is really incredible. But Spirit says in the challenge of last year was sitting in this space. And so we're not bringing that into the new year. And so sitting in that space, Spirit says that relationship is developed and that wisdom is there. But now there is a moment of saying goodbye to that friend, that companion of grief. You're always going to be grieving things because you're always going to be changing, and change entails like death and rebirth. And so this idea that you can get rid of grief in your life is ridiculous. There's always going to be some grief mixed in with like the emotional river, you know, like the flow. There's think about like the algae. This is the grief. It's going to be there. It's part of the ecosystem of your feelings. So there's no batting it away, but you know, Spirit wants to encourage you to learn how to swim. And to let yourself float, and to spend some time healing, you know, floating like along the river with your face towards the sun. And that's sort of what we're leaving behind here, is knowing that we got the lesson from sitting vigil and from sitting with this grief that we've had. And another little tidbit that's coming through is Spirit is saying, you know, grief is the purest form of love that there is, because it forgives in a way that nothing else can. And so to take the forgiveness, you know, to put, how do we move away from this going into the new year? We look at that river of grief. We look at our seat and our table and our couch and our fuzzy blanket and our stuffy, you know what I mean? We look at all the things in that corner that we've set up, you know, sitting vigil with that space of the emotions that were neglected, which there's a Spirit saying, so for some of you, it's a reservoir. But you don't need to live there, and Spirit doesn't want you to live there, because again, like there's this walk through the woods, and then there's this place at the top of a mountain. Spirit wants more for you. And so Spirit is basically saying that we want to now look at that river, that ocean, you know, that reservoir of pain that we have been tending to for some time now, and we want to forgive it so that we can move. And what does forgiveness mean? It means you're not at war with this pain. You're not fighting it. You're not trying to talk it into a better place. You know, to forgive the pain is to know that you can leave it there, that it's been taken care of, that it's loved, that it's been listened to. It's safe now. It's okay for you to leave. That's what forgiveness is. Whatever happened, whatever hurt, it's safe now for you to leave it. It's going to be where it is. It's going to be taken care of where it is. We release it to the higher ecosystem so that it can move out of your emotional ecosystem. And we have a level of faith that whatever is unresolved will have a way of resolving itself, and you release yourself from it. And so now it's not, I have to work hard on the diet of telling myself I can't have this time with this feeling and I'm mad at myself because I did it. That's not what it is. You forgive it so that you can walk away. You turn toward the feeling and say, reservoir of grief, I forgive you, and I know that you don't need me anymore to be here. And so in all of the grief contained, you know, therein, all of the unfinished therein, all of the pain therein, I can release you into your afterlife, and I'm going to go move into mine. Because we're supposed to have a much better relationship with grief, but we don't have a good relationship with death in this culture, and so that's where it gets all messed up. And so this is a little ritual that you can do to release yourself from having to take care of the pain, because you've mistaked it with taking care of your inner child. Taking care of your inner child is not the same as taking care of the pain. The pain doesn't need you to take care of it anymore. It did. But now you want to let your inner child go out and play, and your inner child really wants to go out and play. And so Spirit is saying that's one of the first things we're going to leave in the past. We're going to leave that in the challenges that we've already overcome by doing just this, and it's a maintenance ritual. It's not something you do once and you're, you know, born again. No, you do this kind of regularly. And so that's one thing that we can do that work, you know, and we find ourselves like, you know, in these places of grief that we're supposed to, again, this is part of the ecosystem of your emotional landscape. You're supposed to let the grief have its place in the algae, you know, and when you have reasons to grieve, or when something brings up something that's like truly heartbreaking, and grief is the purest form of love, you're supposed to take that time. But when it swallows everything else and it doesn't give your inner child any time to play, it doesn't give your inner adolescent any time to create, and it doesn't give your inner adult any time to rest, that's when we know that we've given ourselves over to something that needs to be forgiven and released. So Spirit is saying, just work with that. It's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing process. You want to make sure that there's a balance in your emotional landscape, and that's going to be part of the work of next year. So, you know, part of the challenge for you is actually stepping into this new place, stepping out of this door. So Spirit is showing me that it's going to, one of the fears that is showing up here with this moment, one of the fears I'm seeing here is about, how do I put this? It's really scary to go from dark to light. And I'm not talking about like the energies of good and evil, because I don't believe in the energies of good and evil. That's a whole, we can do a reading on that one day maybe, but what do I mean by that? Like, this is where I can get in the way. When I say I don't believe in good and evil and the battles there, and I don't mean that I don't think that those things don't exist. I just think that they exist in a way that can be framed better so that we can manage them better. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But what I'm seeing here is, you know, this contrast. And when we talk about contrast and we talk about what it means to be stepping into something healthy and good and vibrant and nourishing, what we're speaking of is the butterfly, when it gets out of that cocoon, and this comes up in my readings, so you might hear it more than once, that moment when it sticks its little head out of the cocoon, when it cracks the cocoon open, the cocoon was warm. The cocoon was free of wind. The cocoon was not too bright and not too dark. You died in the cocoon. You became goo in the cocoon. Your ego croaked in the cocoon, but then you found yourself again in the cocoon, and you found yourself in a comfortable, wonderful place in the cocoon. So the cocoon wasn't going to make you thrive. It was going to heal you. It was going to transform you. But coming out of that cocoon, when all you've ever known, and the worm really, you know, the worm's only hope is that it's died once before, you know? And so the worm knows it was once a worm and then it became goop. So what is it? When the worm, you know, when the butterfly cracks that cocoon and sticks its head out, it is cold, it is freezing, it is bright, it is uncomfortable, it doesn't know what it is. It is panicking. And it has to cling for a little while before the skin gets thick enough. And so when we talk about what you're bringing in, what you've manifested in the way of abundance, what you're manifesting in the way of miracles for your life, we have to first face the fact and sit with the fact that you're manifesting an energy so foreign in so many ways that it scares you, even if it is going into the light, even if it is being born. And we see this in all kinds of cycles. You know, the womb to the delivery room is a horrible transition, and it's also to life, and you're moving into life. Spirit is saying, you know, when we look at what the hope is, you know, we are moving into life. And so Spirit is basically showing me that I'm just going to sit with this for a second. This is hard, you know. So Spirit is saying, you know, one of the challenges for you is to stop thinking it's so easy, or that it should be easy. The expectation that it should be easy is one of the things that kills dreams faster than anything else on earth. And it's not that it needs to be hard. It's just that we want a better relationship with the notion of challenge. Because if we spend our lives trying to avoid it, we're going to just drive ourselves into an early, like, that's a grave. Again, avoiding change, you know, a comfort zone that doesn't allow for growth. This is where we start to rot. This is where we start to get sick. We need to encourage the agitation of change, or have a relationship with it that isn't so bad, because this becomes really terrifying, really terrifying. And for those of you that have traveled a little bit, it's like when you first get to your first time in a foreign country that doesn't speak the same language, you wanted to be there. Oh my gosh, you wanted to see this, you wanted to do that, you wanted to travel. This is amazing. I can't believe it. But if you're standing there by yourself and you're trying to figure out how to get the right bus and you don't speak the language, whoa. And so this is something that Spirit is basically saying, like, you know, you've cracked the door, and you've cracked the door enough to be like, I want to go out there. I don't want to be in my cave anymore. I don't want to be in the subterranean hellscape of you know, dealing with my trauma anymore. Like I want to step into my purpose. I want to step into my prosperity. I want to start, you know, I want to step into my abundance. I want to step into you know, a place in the world. Like there's so much here that you want, that you know that you want, that you've been trying to manifest for a really long time. And so you've cracked the door on it and you feel the heat, but it requires significant change. As the Spirit said, you know, one of the biggest challenges that you've had to face is cracking this door. That was a miracle beyond all miracles. You know, that was like, you know, that I'm trying to think of like the way that it feels, if I can get a good analogy, Spirit, like a this is strange. Like, really? Sometimes Spirit will bring something through and I will be like, really? Like, that's the example? Like, that's not the example that I would give, but I'm going to just give it. But you remember there was a movie, it was got to be like the 80s or something, Free Willy with the whale. They had to free the whale from the heck was it? It's like an aquarium and he has to like jump over a huge, so Spirit is saying like just cracking the door. And that was the example that was given. And I have to look at that movie. I don't remember what it was. I just remember like there's associations with where I'm like, argh. But anyway, Spirit is saying like, let's not belittle the crack in the door. Let's not look at the crack in the door that you achieved in the last couple of years and think, well, you got to go out there, you know, because you do have to go out there. You want to go out there, but this is an achievement where we do want to spend a little time. And I want you to listen to this. I want you to really bring this in. This is very specifically, Spirit is like, I want you to have this. I want you to open your hand and your heart and receive this. When I say, Spirit is saying, when I say that I am proud of you, I'm going to cry. Oh, this is coming through really heavy. Bear with Lisalee here because, whoa, Spirit is saying, when I say that I am proud of you, when I say that I am impressed with you, when I say that I delight in your achievements, even those that you don't even count, I mean it. And so Spirit wants you to bring that all the way in because it's part of you having the courage. We're going to cry right now. We're just going to have a little cry. It's part of you having the courage to step out into that new vista, is knowing that you're so powerful that you stepped through the previous new vista, that you opened the previous door, and that you spend a lot of time in that cave, but to know how proud of you Spirit is, how impressed with you Spirit is, to shine the light of your successes, which you have which have often gone unnoticed and unacknowledged. Spirit is acknowledging them so that you can bring that acknowledgement, that success, that being proud of yourself into the light of this new space. And so I need a tissue. Give me 1 second. Where do I have, like, oh, there we go. Gotta love when like a reading makes, like, you know, when a reading hits that spot. Ooh. All right. There's a little bit of water. We should all be taking a sip of water right now. Just get that emotional body kind of interacting with some liquid. If you don't have water, pause and get some. I think it's always a good idea to have a notebook and water when we sit down for these readings. So this challenge, you know, it's basically like, this is your call to bravery. You know, we have the Fool on the bottom of the deck. The Fool is thrust forward, but the Fool takes the leap. You know, the Fool card is, you know, the first day of a new school. The Fool card is anytime that you have felt like you wanted to crawl into a ball and not face, you know, something new and different and foreign to you, and instead of crawling into a ball, you got up and you just literally took that first step. Scary and difficult as it was, you knew that you wanted to, like, you needed to do it, there were good reasons for it, and you talk yourself into it. So your Fool card is like, you know, you're going off the mountain, you're jumping off the cliff. You know that you're going to be caught, but you also know that wherever you're caught is going to be a completely new space that you can't really, you don't know what it's going to be. There's an unknown, you know, and we're meant to embrace that. We're meant to, like, look forward to that. We're meant to feel excited about that. you know, the part of you that like gets up and wants to go to the park, if that was shut down over and over and over again, it's hard to get up and want to do a thing without knowing that it's a good thing to do a thing. It's not gonna like end in having to care for your parent at the park while they have a meltdown. Like this, I'm really dealing with people who just haven't had like almost, who've had to take care of everyone their entire lives. And so Spirit is saying, this is fun. We're going to the park. You know, maybe you don't know that you're going to like it, but taking that leap of faith is better than wondering wondering about it from a place of not movement. Anyway, so Spirit is saying, you know, this is one challenge, and now we have a challenge of dealing with people. And so I think I'm gonna leave this here with this knowledge that, like, you know, asking for something new and getting something new, this isn't so easy. So we're gonna let that be a challenge, but we're also gonna know that you got this, you're ready, you can do it. We're all gonna do this together. Let's just hold hands and jump together, you know, like, let's just kind of feel that we're all here for each other. We're gonna take each other's hands. We're gonna jump off that cliff together. We don't have to do it alone, right? So that's where we're talking about people. And this is the Six of Coins. So this is interesting that the Six of Coins would come out with the Seven of Swords, because let's just start with here. So the Six of Coins is about equal give and take. It's about reciprocity. And when it's upright, you know, it's really about like someone coming in and being generous and tipping and making the scales more even. A lot of times it's just like, you know, something as simple as somebody being generous has made life a little fairer, even if that isn't the person. The Spirit is saying generosity can come from so many places. Just like open your eyes to all the sources. Sometimes you're dealing with like stingy bosses or stingy partners, or, you know, or people who are being unfair about money in your environment. So generosity often, you know, comes in to sort of balance the scales of those who, you know, whatever it ends up being. Like, it's just that's another reading we can do about like our relationship to money. But anyway, let me focus. So Spirit is saying that, you know, what we're looking at here is relationship around give and take. And with the Seven of Swords, like, we're going to validate for you that you have been around the most exploitive energies your entire life, because you feel like this is a coping mechanism for you. That everyone you have been around, like, has really abused the give and take. They've taken and they've given very little. They've been mad. Like, you know, there's a couple energies around you. One, like, gets mad at you when you don't give everything. You know, another one, like, ignores you unless you put a whole lot of effort. Like, there's a lot of ways in which you haven't had relationships where the give and take has been, like, safe or good. I mean, some of it has just been really, really bad. And that the coping mechanism, because you've dealt with dishonest people, you've dealt with people who tricked you, you've dealt with people who have abused your generosity and your kindness. And I'm just seeing somebody whose, like, natural state is to, like, dance into a room, like, so happy to be alive. And that it's been like dancing into you know, a lion's den, like, over and over again. Like, you've been made defensive. And one of the things that has made this defense is just not knowing how to manage, like, relationships in terms of what you give and what you get. Because you don't want to measure, you don't want to be a measurer, and you don't want to be one of these, like, social exchange people. But you want to make sure that you're not dealing with a social exchange person, because they're going to try and optimize, you know. And so Spirit is basically saying with this that you've developed this mask, you've developed this way of hiding who you are and hiding your gifts and hiding the qualities that make you shine, because you don't want to be either, you know, you don't want to have to deal with either jealousy in relationship to these things, and you don't want to have to deal with this being misinterpreted and being projected on, and you don't want to deal with theft, and you don't want to deal with exploitation. And so all of that has resulted in you really hiding some of the most some of the best qualities you have. And this is actually going back a while. And so Spirit is saying, like, one of the really important challenges of these years was just identifying those things that, you know, the isolation led to an opportunity to spend time with some of the things that you were suppressing so actively to avoid negative consequences of, like, people taking advantage or being jealous. You know, those were like we had to unbury you alive to a certain degree. So Spirit is basically showing me that, you know, you have identified these qualities that are so amazing, that you're so, they used to hide just to keep yourself safe. And so now that you have these qualities identified, that was some of the challenge of the last couple of years, actually, not just the last year. And that you developed, you know, a lifetime of being exploited made you develop this, like, it's like a persona or a mask, you know, or a way that you present yourself in relationship to others, where you're just like, you're in a social situation and the only thing that you can focus on is how can I keep myself safe? You're mirroring people. And so there's just a whole lot of you not showing up all the way. And so Spirit is saying that, like, this year was identifying the qualities that had been hidden from others, had previously been hidden from yourself as a result of the habit of hiding it from others. But now you know what these qualities are. You spend time with yourself. You know what these qualities are. It's time to bring them outside and with people. And so this challenge is a little bit about, like, well, and we'll look at just, we're going to spend just a little bit of time on that. You know, this challenge is really about how can you bring your best attributes to the world without being afraid of the consequences? Because there's always going to be consequences to bringing the best attributes to the world. We can't really avoid that. So with the Hermit and the Devil, this was the challenge. You know, this is last year's challenge, is really, I'm actually going to move these cards out of the way. I'm going to shuffle this back in because we really covered that pretty thoroughly, and we're going to stay with this a little bit. This is both, you know, overcoming. I'm going to shuffle the sock a little bit. That Six of Pentacles and that Seven of Wands is overcoming your value, your qualities, your talents, if they haven't become clear to you or in the process of becoming clear to you. Your best self that you spend a lot of time with is now ready to be showed to everybody else. You were really trapped inside, and it gave you tremendous insight. It gave you a really amazing perspective on the world. Like, you were led by the Spirit. You know, that was this was this awakening process for you. But Spirit is saying, like, don't let the awakening process turn into a lifestyle. How can I explain this? Spirit is almost showing me that, like, that there's always a counterfeit, or there's always an option that presents itself that is enabling. And so, and this is an example, and if it speaks directly to someone, it speaks directly to someone. And it's not really speaking, you know, to mental health issues. It's basically, we're just like giving the example. If there's a tendency towards anorexia, then being vegan and not really actively participating and making sure that your diet has everything that you need, like, you can almost like sublimate or enable certain qualities that are good and make them end up working against you. So being, you know, being a vegan and having a vegan lifestyle can be extremely good and for everyone around. But if you don't do it right, you can be enabling some patterns of not nourishing yourself properly. And it acts like a mask. And so Spirit is saying, you know, asking us to take the mask down around some of these behaviors that are enabling patterns that don't serve us, and look at them in the face and say, yes, that period of introspection and that period of being isolated was important for my awakening. But and you had to spend that time. You really, truly needed to spend that time. And that was some of the safest time you've ever had in your life. Like, for so many of you, this time of introspection and this time of being locked in all these different ways had given you the most peace that had ever existed in your life, ever, ever, ever. And so that peace is really valuable. You learned so much. You took control of so much. You really did the work. And now you're in this place of innovation. This is a new space. But in order to really step fully into the, you know, the fruits of this labor, we first have to stop thinking that it has to be done from inside. Like, you know, you don't need the safest place in the world to do this work anymore. You don't need to cut yourself off from anything to do this work. Now you're actually meant to bring this work into the world. That's opening that door. And so this habit of equating isolation and safety as being the same thing, like, this is one of the biggest things to work on, so much so that I think we have to save, like, really digging into that for like a separate reading. So some of you who want this, just write the note in the comments and I'll put that note in my book and we'll do a whole reading on that. But really just looking at this as being a challenge that we don't want to bring into the new year. You want to We want to get you outside. and that's there's like fear of what it means to really fully step into what it, like, go beyond just a couple of friends and into what community might mean for you is very, very fearful. And so Spirit is basically saying, let's call that what it is so that we can deal with the fear. So let's not call it something else, because you're really gonna be poised for, right? This is about like planning, you know, planning. Let me just look at this for 1 second. This is about planning. This is about thinking. This is about taking everything that you've learned and everything that you're doing and everywhere that you want to go, looking at what the limitations are as you move forward, making plans around those limitations, thinking about how you can work with them, how can you negotiate with this or that, how can you navigate. This is the navigation card, thinking about navigating. So this is right now. This is right between like where the new year ended and the old year ended and the new year is going to begin. And so this is this moment that you're in right now. And so as you're in this contemplation, in this moment, understand that you have done the work, you are ready to graduate, and you are graduating with plans for the future that are innovative. And even if you don't have a clear picture on that, from an emotional standpoint, you know you're ready to graduate. You know you're ready to enter a phase that doesn't look anything like the one that you've been in for kind of a while. And so Spirit is saying, you know, when we think about what these challenges is, one of the challenges is going to be planning, routine, goals, you know, wants, need, wishes, you know, how to organize that, how to make it all work. And that's kind of scary. And so we're going to spend a little time on that too. I think this reading is going to go long. I'm going to let it go long because if you have to stop and come back and, you know, if this if this is helpful, then, you know, I'm going to let it go long anyway. It might, yeah. Maybe you want to break it up, but whatever. I was going to say I can probably put timestamps, but I think I'm already going to break it up that way. So, as you move into the future, we're going to do a little bit here on planning. And so we're going to acknowledge that taking the mask off and taking some of these finer attributes into the world with you and really showcasing who you are, that this is challenging, because now how do you figure out who's safe, who's not safe? How do you know how much to give and how do you know how to receive? Like, you know, we're gonna look at that a little bit, and we're gonna look at this challenging, this fear, but I'm gonna do that in a whole different reading. So right now, just to get organized, let me just check in with Spirit because I'm falling off the channel a little bit, and I want to make sure that I'm where I'm supposed to be. Let's see. Get some music going. Okay, take a breath. Let's look at relationships. I'm not going to save this for another reading. I'm going to let this reading go so long, and I'm just going to be okay with that. I don't know how long it's going to go, but we're going to actually deal with that now rather than try to break it up for the sake of anyone who might not want to hear about this part of it, you know? So for you, taking this mask off, like, so right now, the challenge that you're leaving, this was a challenge in last year, but the way, what you've overcome and what you're bringing into the new year is like a knowledge of who you are and what you have to offer people. And it's now just about summoning the courage to just be fully that in front of anyone. And like, no matter what happens, like, you're just going to be your best self and your honest self, and it's going to have to be good enough. And whoever it's not, those relationships won't go well. So let's just like look at that. And then we'll come back here to overcoming the fear of moving out of the space of the Hermit. And I'm actually going to get some Oracle cards. Spirit is saying use the Oracle cards. So let's do that. Let's talk about planning too. We're going to get into the planning part. So these cards are actually from a game, and I liked them so much that I consecrated them for divination. So you may recognize them from a board game, and I think that they're amazing. So we're going to use this here to talk about the issue of how to not fear exploitation, because it's really like, people can be like, oh, you don't want to fear people, but you're going to fear them for good reason if you don't know how to like give and receive. And so we're just going to talk about how to learn how to give and receive so that it takes the fear out of it when you don't have to wonder and you don't have to like try to navigate something in the dark with, you know, no headlights. Because that's the fear. And you might hear my cat in the background. So we're just going to go with it. You know what? I like this though. You're in my living room. You're not like some, you know, in my living room, the cat is making noise and the music turns into a commercial, and it's actually not my living room, but it's a room in my house. I mean living room in the sense that it's just generally, you're here with me. Okay. Oh, I like this. We're talking about masking. Everybody does it. You know, I'm autistic. I do it to a degree that is like absurd. But we all do it. You know, it's a response to the fear of being seen and ridiculed. And we all develop a response to being seen and ridiculed because it's one of the first things that we have to confront as little children. You know, the Spirit is basically showing me this card stands out more than anything because when the person I'm talking to, your love for creating things is so much a part of you. You immerse yourself in, like, when you have something that you love and there are things that you love where that thing that you do that is absolutely the purest expression of who you are is so precious and so powerful and so every single thing. If you're wondering what your purpose is, if you're wondering who you're supposed to be, the thing that makes you feel like this, the thing that you do that brings you joy, where your essence comes out in a new form that's like, this are like babies, you know? This is like one of these things where the creation process, you know, two energies come together and they make a new thing. You know, this is you like interacting with this art form or this way of communicating or this way of creating. You know, even if it's business, it's creating. You know, interacting with this thing that you love so much that it's such a big part of you that you, it's like you're giving birth to like, and so these things that you give birth through this process of creation are so precious to you, and it makes sense. You know, you wouldn't want someone to punch your infant in the face. And this is how much this is how much of this is a part of you. This is how much what you create and the creative things that you do. And this could even just be, this could be mothering, this could be parenting, this could be being a mother or a father, you know, like this is, that's part of the creative process. So there's something so precious to you, so important to you, something that you do that really, it's your purpose, because your purpose is, you're created with that purpose. And so that's why this is so close. This is something that you've just been like, I don't want to do this in front of anybody. I don't want anybody to hurt this. Think of these as being like precious, valuable infants. A couple days old, a couple years old, things that you've made, that you've nurtured, that you've put yourself into, and that you love, truly, truly love as an extension of yourself. In the same way, and especially, yeah, Spirit's stopping me because Spirit is saying you have had the experience of taking your infant into the world and being like, look at my beautiful baby that I created. Look at this incredible, and having someone punch the infant in the face. So it makes a lot of sense, because this started like when you were like 2, 3, 4, you know, like this is really critical. It has made you feel like the things that you have to contribute, the things that you have to create aren't safe in the world. And that's probably true to an extent. You know, we're going to talk about what this that these creations are way more resilient. You know, like basically the good news that Spirit wants to tell you right now is that those infants that you've made, that you don't want to bring into the world because you don't want someone to punch that infant in the face. Spirit says those particular infants are punch in the face resilient. That infant doesn't feel that punch in the face. That infant can survive that punch in that face. That infant can have that punch in that face and still continue to grow and to continue to be itself and to continue to reflect you back to you. You know, like that somebody can attack the infant. The Spirit is saying that infant is actually indestructible and nothing can actually hurt it. It can hurt your feelings of how somebody's interpreting it, seeing it, you know, how people name it and how they describe it to you can hurt you in relationship to it. But that creation, that thing that you created, is all powerful to a certain extent. Like it's gonna, so you don't need to protect it so much. You don't need to hide it away. You can put your creations out into the world. Know that nothing anyone can, says about it makes it less valuable or less important, and that nothing anybody says about it says anything about you. Now that's a little bit tricky because we were like, well, how can, if I put a song out, say I write a song and I put it out there and everyone's like, that song is terrible. How can that not be about me? That's, let's just like address the question. Well, it's not, because you're not taking yourself, the entirety of who you are and what you are, and like, stamping it into a new form. And now like they're attacking something you made, and there could be a number of reasons why. And it's none of that has to do with you. That's all somebody else's projection. And so like, yes, like, one of the fears with, how do we give and receive is how are we perceived and how are we received? You know what I mean? And so Spirit is saying like, we have to just untangle this a little bit. Your creations that you put out into the world are meant to reach the people that they're meant to reach. They're meant to be understood by the people that they're meant to be understood by. And anybody else who doesn't understand them or it reaches them wrong, like dismissed, denial. You dismiss because you're not looking for them to inform you about who you are or what your value is or what you produce or didn't produce in relationship to like what they think of it. We're not doing that at all. You make it, it's valuable, its value, and you wait for it to be received by the right people who will also know its value. And that's kind of like Spirit saying like the magic riddle or the password to getting access to this valuable thing for a lot of people is going to be whether or not they see its value. And that brings us back to the story of who is that? Moses. The burning bush was always burning. Moses was just the first person who noticed it, or the only person who noticed it. And so it's like, if you create a miracle in the desert and nobody sees it, well, then maybe it's just waiting for the person who's going to have the password, because everybody else isn't worthy, right? And so Spirit is saying that this is the way that you want to think about your creations is less in the way of like, is everybody going to like it? And more in the way of, I'm creating a holy miracle burning bush, and not everybody is going to have the alchemy to access it. And those that don't have the alchemy to access this are going to say, well, I don't see anything. Or, or like, I don't know what that is. It's just on fire. You know what I mean? So you don't need people to get it and value it for you to understand its value, and for you to also understand that they don't actually affect its value because you're the one who created it. You're the one who sets its value, and you set it and you keep it. And so, so Spirit is saying like, we want to talk about that because your creation and what you have to create is vital. The world needs it. Absolutely. 100%. This is why you're finding this reading. This is why this message is getting to you. You need to create. So Spirit says like, this is really tied into not knowing how to deal with people, because it's like, I know how to create by myself. I don't want to deal with people because they might, hurt it. They might reject it. They might try to, and the other side of that is they might try to exploit you as a result of it. So even if you know that you're talented, know the value, you don't want to be exploited. You don't want to be manipulated. You don't want people to see what you have and try to take it. That's this whole Six of Coins conundrum here. And so Spirit is saying like, let's stop thinking about it that way. Like Spirit is saying like, look at my brave little shoulder. Like this Spirit is saying, look at my brave little soldier. Not sure which door is going to lead to rejection, not sure which door is going to lead to theft, and not sure which door is going to lead home, but feeling completely just trapped trying to figure it out. And so Spirit is basically saying your discernment has been really flawed in the past because you were managing trying not to be hurt 24/7, and like that's survival mode, that fight and flight. It can make it really, really hard to tell whether people or things are good for you or not. And when we look at these lessons that you've had to learn, one of the things that you've learned is you can't trust yourself, right? And so that's something that we're talking about why isn't it easy to figure out how to give and receive? Why isn't it easy to be around people and know how to, how to interact? Spirit is saying that has a lot to do with having your trust in yourself really scarred by the fact that you have gone open-hearted into so many arenas where your light was too bright, and everybody who needed to be hiding in the darkness, threw stones at you. And so that made you feel like you were wrong and you can't trust yourself to be a certain way, and that it won't lead to pain and horrible. But Spirit is saying that, the opposition you faced is often let's get this right, Spirit. The opposition that you've faced is often in proportion to your light and your greatness and your potential. So in proportion to your potential is going to be the amount of opposition to it, because we are in a world that is sick, really, really infected with the disease of comparison and lack. And so every gift you have is going to be often received by other people as a threat, and that's why your opposition is in proportion to your giftedness, because your giftedness threatens. It just does. And so Spirit is saying, like, it's not that you can't trust yourself, it's that you have to know that you really can't, there's something to do with open-heartedness, and we'll get there in a second, because I think that this will get us there. Spirit is basically showing me that this is really just like strategy. How can I avoid, I made this beautiful thing. I made this precious infant. I made this beautiful sailboat. This is you with your plans and your hope for your life. And you're thinking to yourself, how can I avoid the storms? Like, how can I avoid attack? How can I make sure that this is a safe harbor? And you can't. When we recognize that we can't control the outcome ever, and I've said this before, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you can't save your own life if you hit a storm, or you get sick, or there's so many ways in which you have to abandon this idea that you can control the outcome. You can't. That's a tyranny. And it's an unnatural tyranny, and it's a tyranny that will rule your life and actually take over everything in the way of, again, this is enslaving your potential. We want to remember the phrase enslaving your potential. What is enslaving your potential? If trying to control the outcome and save yourself every possible storm, it's important for you to know that this is a random, embrace just how Spirit is saying, just embrace it, that you don't need control. This is a revolutionary way of thinking, that you take care of yourself, you take good care of yourself, you take good care of yourself like a good parent. You make sure that your needs are met, you do what you need to do to meet those needs. But at the end of the day, look at the situations, the storms that arrive in your life, and ask yourself, could I have prepared for this? If the answer is no, then think about it okay, people go to, I'm being shown roller coasters. People go to, it's not a circus, Spirit, what is that? It's a fair. People go to these this is not coming, this is a channel that's coming through where there's a part of my mind that is missing for Spirit to use, and it's we all know what I'm talking about. There's a Ferris wheel, and there are these rides that are scary, and Spirit says, we have a natural innate excitement for challenge and exploration, and that's what we've evolved on, this desire to know more, to explore more, to go into territories that we haven't known. And so if we don't use that energy, productively, to sort of look at these situations, these storms that come in, and say, I have no control, so I'm in for a ride, then we're going to go and, find that for entertainment and go on the roller coaster. Spirit says, skip the roller coaster. Next time you find yourself in a situation where you wouldn't have had control and you've got to weather a storm, strap in for the ride. And I can almost feel some people being I hate roller coasters. Yeah, you don't like that feeling, but Spirit is saying, but you have to think about it like a roller coaster. This is going to be a wild ride. I'm going to hold on tight. I'm going to feel really fucking threatened and scared sometimes, but at the end, the ride will end. It's going to drop me off in a new place. And so Spirit is saying, like, you know, that this is something that if we learn how to just embrace it instead of fearing it, if we take some of the power away from it, we take some of the sting away from it, and we can more fully move into our successes. And so, you know, when you meet a new person and when you go out to socialize, you don't know what kind of a storm they bring. But Spirit says hiding from life just because you don't want to have to deal with bad weather also means you don't want to get sun. You know, in the same way that you can cut yourself off from storms, you know, just to keep yourself safe from them, you can't cut yourself off from storms without cutting yourself off from weather. And if you cut yourself off from weather, you're never going to see the sun. And so accepting the weather in life, accepting that these relationships are going to reveal themselves to you. And sometimes you're going to have a situation where you encounter a person where you hit this storm and you're like, okay, you know, either I'm in for the ride on this or I'm leaving. You take that ride on your own. I know what my boundaries are now, and I don't let everybody else's weather drag me around anymore. And so this is kind of like where we anchor into ourselves. And so Spirit says, to the degree that your trust in yourself has been marred, that needs healing. But you don't want to let that rule your life. We're taking a challenge into the new year around this idea of trusting the self. And one of the biggest things that you can do to trust yourself is trust that yourself cannot control every outcome, and that it shouldn't even be trying to. And that you should embrace the freedom of not knowing what's going to happen next. And then put that energy towards faith. You know, whenever you get scared about what could happen, just, all right, I got to figure out this technology of faith. You know, technology of faith is a component of manifestation. You know, that's part of what has to go into the pot. You know, pure intention, faith. These are all things that need to go into that manifestation in order to bring it forth. So if you're missing the faith and something, it's an ingredient that you need the alchemy on it, right? And so you're going to work on that. And so, when it comes to going out there and putting yourself out there honestly with the mask off and knowing that, like, you can't control every outcome, you can't really determine where every door is going to lead, but you don't want to hide what makes you you and what is your strengths, because that's your purpose. So it's asking for bravery. That's why this card is like brave little you are properly armored. And you have the right weapons, you know, to create your boundaries. And so now you just pick the door that you like. And if you don't hold such pressure on yourself to avoid calamity because you know you have no control over the outcomes anyway, then you're just picking the door you like. And that's the much more likely path to not lead you into calamity. Because if you're picking the door out of fear, you're going to do the armored door that's going to lock you in, and you're going to be screaming and trying to get out. If you pick the door in the middle that's the easy door that doesn't have any challenge, then you're just going to be wandering around in a circle, you know, in the despair of boredom. So if you pick the beautiful door because you're not worried about staying safe and you're not worried about keeping things, you know, the same, then you enter into the door that is the one you're supposed to actually go to, because it has nothing to do with the decision being made by fear or trepidation, and everything to do with, like, this is where your intuition leads. And so that's kind of like a powerful thing to know, that, like, you know, when you've made mistakes in the past and you don't trust yourself, you can trust yourself. Now you know. If you're making a decision with fear, that's not you. That's fear making the decision. If you're making the decision with there's a number of ways that you can make a decision, and you got to think about the alchemy of everything and say, wait, I can trust my own intuition. I just can't trust my intuition when I mix it in with like fear. I keep coming back to the same word. And so just like take the fear out, and then you'll have a better way of seeing things. And if you end up wandering into a storm, you were meant to, and then you don't flinch and get mad at yourself for being in the storm. You're like, I'm just in the storm. I couldn't control the outcome. I'm buckling in for the ride. This abandonment is pretty significant. But Spirit says, you know, you've been in the underworld for a really long time, and I just want to invite you out. And so I guess, you know, where we're going to leave this part of the message is, you know, Spirit is saying, and this really speaks to the Hermit card on this end. And all of this kind of wraps together because it's all kind of about a fear of trying to control, you know, trying to control the outcome is basically like the root of this whole problem here. But Spirit is saying that there's been an abandonment you know, you were abandoned and you were neglected as a little kid. You neglected and you abandoned yourself as an adult, because that's just what happens. And this is just a card of, these two cards really just are basically saying, you've already, it's not that you've hit bottom, you've pitched a tent there, and you made a life there. But you don't live it, this is the lie here, is that you have to now live on lockdown and in hypervigilance because you've been to the bottom, and the bottom is where you are. Spirit is saying like that there can even be a hope that you can sort of rise up from some of these places of like some of these wounds that kind of swallowed you all the way up. Spirit is saying like, you know, this is where, you know, we talk about, you know, a lot of times we get these readings on TikTok or on YouTube, and it's like, you know, change is right there, it's right around the corner, it's coming for you, it's going to be amazing, things are going to be great, prosperity, amazing. Yeah, that does not come without doing this hard work that we're doing right now. It doesn't come without saying, you know, I don't want to live here anymore, and whatever I have to do to get out of here is worth the effort. I don't want to live, I don't want to, this hermit is enslaved to its surroundings and to its isolation. You want to break that chain because you don't want to be here anymore. And so Spirit is saying the good news and what we're taking into finding relationships and finding opportunities. The good news is when you're never going to be able to safeguard yourself completely and 100%. You have to sort of go out there into the light of the new day. You got to push that door open. You have to walk into that foreign environment and know that you're just buckling in for the ride. And sometimes the ride is going to be fun and sometimes it's going to be terrifying, but you're going to be feeling alive and vibrant because you're showing up, and you're not going to feel dead because you're not. And so Spirit is like, let's move out of the fearest of fars. Let's move out of the forest of fears. And we have to leave all of the armory and the weaponry and the arsenal. Anything that we don't need, we leave there. And what we take with us is our intuition, a knowledge that we can't control everything, and a willingness to do whatever it takes to get out of hell, to get out of the isolation and to get your needs met. And so there's bravery that we have to put in the mix with that purity of intention. There's bravery that we have to put in the mix with faith. And that's what these two cards are about. So even though this reading is going to be like insanely long, I'm going to let it, because I still think that like it's worth taking the time to look at this a little bit. And it's true, hope is going to be the second part of this reading. And that you might have to do that on another day, you know, because attention spans, like it makes sense. This is really long. All right. Let me shuffle this back in. I'm going to hope that, you know, I see this as being short, and then I think we're going to be able to go right back into hope. But I just want to look at this real fast because it's important for me that you don't leave this reading feeling like we've dug up everything and then left a mess. I want you to actually feel like we have gone to these places where your awareness has been brought to challenge, and that we've actually spent enough time to overcome it, or, you know, to begin having the tools to overcome it. So let's go ahead and get into this next little part, because overcoming the fear of new environments and new people is knowing that you can't control much with that, but that you are safe because you're with yourself. You know, your higher self is with yourself. The part of you that is an adult is with yourself, and you're safe to be with, and whatever happens, you're going to be able to handle it because you always do. Not easily, but certainly you're still here with us, thankfully, and that's a huge blessing. So let's just get you outside. What does that mean? All right. This is advice on what it means to get you outside. Yeah. Okay. Well, the comfort zone requires a lot of maintenance. And that's what really Spirit is saying. You know, to stay in the comfort zone, you have to work really, really hard to numb yourself. The comfort zone is not your natural habitat. It doesn't feel good to you. It doesn't feel natural to you. Yes, you have peace, especially those of you that grew up in like hellish chaos. The price of peace shouldn't be isolation. And we really need to just like put that in big bold letters across whatever you're taking notes with. Like, that's just so important. Yeah, look at that. Huh. And so Spirit is saying, like, don't delude yourself about how much work, energy, devotion, it's not comfortable. You know, it's like, it just as uncomfortable as it is to start an exercise routine, because your body is like not, yeah, if you don't exercise, if you've been exercising for a long time. But if you know what I'm talking about, if you've like gone a long time and you haven't really been taking care of that part of yourself, when you have to, that first week or 2 weeks is like, this is miserable. You know, so Spirit is saying, like, understand that you're not moving into, just by opening that door and stepping into this light, you're not moving into more work. You're moving away from all of the work that you have to, the labor that is put into numbing yourself and making this tolerable for yourself when it's not, it doesn't feel good, and you feel just like, you feel you're not happy, right? You're not happy with the way things are. So and we're talking about stuff that you're not happy about the way things are. We're not talking about the stuff that you feel good about, because we're really still looking at the challenges. And so Spirit is saying, like, just recognize first and foremost that as much energy as you have to put into tolerating the life that you don't like, you're not benefiting from that energy, and you could be putting that energy into other things. And so don't think that by staying the same that you save yourself from having to expend your energy. You're gonna have to do it either way. We can do it in a way that's constructive or destructive. And Spirit says not even destructive, reductive, making you smaller, making you less, making you need, you know, this is all kind of like, that's a lot of work. That's a pain in the neck. So this is about exploring, and this is about curiosity, and this is about stoking the flames of curiosity. It's sort of like, no, you're not going to go out tomorrow, and because I am seeing someone who struggles socially, right? Like, this is real. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We don't need to. We're all here together. And Spirit says that because this is habitual, because this is behavioral, because this is like, you know, circumstances plus, you know, constraints equals, this is where I am right now. You may have forgotten, how do you go out and get yourself connected to community? Like, how do you even do that? And when the need has gotten to the point where it is severe, and you try to go out with the stakes being so high, this need is intense, and now the social thing that you go to, like the community event that you go to, whatever it ends up being, the stakes are so high when you've had so much deprivation that's kind of a bad alchemy for allowing for this, like, these things to come into your life, because you walk in, and if you don't have those conversations, and if it doesn't go well, and then the walls crumble, and you're, you know, plunged into the depths of your despair. And so Spirit wants to just say, like we're gonna take care of this. We're gonna do this with conscious effort. The first thing you want to do is take all the pressure and all the high stakes off of these social engagements. That's why they're causing the anxiety that they're causing, because you're giving them way too much credit and way too much, like, it's like that social event is not supposed to meet the need. A process of socializing, and it actually takes, and I know this because I went to a lot of schools, it takes about 3 months of showing up every single day to something in order for those interactions to start feeling good. They don't feel good for like 3 months. And I can tell you that, just like, I have done the work on this, and I know this very, very well. I've moved a lot, even as an adult. And so Spirit is saying, you know, let's take the expectations that, like, every social interaction is going to bring that person to you that is going to solve the problem, or bring that group of people to you who's going to solve the problem, because that is putting way too much pressure on any, you know, given interaction with somebody. And so Spirit is saying, first, we're going to form a relationship with curiosity before we try to think about where that curiosity is going to lead. Because, again, curiosity is, and this is such a good example, and this does come through my readings kind of a lot. I'm just trying to see if I can remember exactly. You know, a good example is when you're looking for the love of your life. Well, wait, I'm getting this wrong. Spirit, center me. Okay, so when you are following what you love in life, when you're doing what you love in life, you are likely to meet the love of your life. But if you are trying to get the love of your life, you're not doing what you love, then you're not gonna, the love of your life is gonna be found in the things that you love, not somewhere else. And so when you're just focused on finding that love of your life, and not thinking about what you love in life, you're going to the wrong place. And that's putting a lot of pressure on that too. And so Spirit's saying, when we develop healthy curiosity, especially you grew up in this world, that's going to be squashed really young, no matter who you are, no matter what your opportunities are. So we're not going to be thinking about, well, how do I make these nourishing relationships? We're going to think about, what do you love to do? What are you curious about? What do you want to know more about? And you're going to make a list of what you want to know more about and what you're curious about, whatever it is, like I hear the word armor. I don't know why. History, right? I love history. Okay, so now you're going to make a list of the time periods and what you like to focus on. And so next time, and then you're going to plop it into Google, and no matter where you live, there's a Zoom option. There is. And I know that there's this feeling of like, I don't want to socialize through Zoom. And Spirit is saying, why not? Well, because it's not going to meet that need. I'm not going to feel nourished. I need to look into somebody's eyes and hold somebody's hand and have that. Spirit is saying, no, that's high stakes. You do need those things, but we're not going to ask the first couple of times that you're trying to like meet people. You're not going to ask that much of every encounter. You're actually going to say, I really love learning about rocks, not even rocks. Spirit is like kind of saying, no, something more particular, something that you love and you know everything about because you've been loving it a long time. You Google, book clubs on, or things about, or meetup, anything. And because a lot of these meetups, they have a online version. So even if you live in the middle of Timbuktu, I don't know if that's a real country or if that was insensitive. I hope not. But even if you live in the middle of nowhere, Spirit is saying still, I will provide, because that card that we saw with the cello or whatever she was holding, that was her. Your purpose is what you desire. What you desire is going to be where the opportunities and the people who you really click with are going to be found. And so you're going to sit in the Zoom meeting, because you're not going to, maybe you can't meet those people right away, but you can start a conversation with somebody and like listen to the way they talk, and oh my gosh, that person's really interesting. And then let's study the book separately. Let's hang out. You make a friend. So what? They live a little far away. What if your network gets bigger and bigger and bigger? Someone knows someone. This is how it all begins. And so Spirit is saying, like, first thing we're going to do is focus on what you like. Second thing we're going to do is focus on talking about doing or participating with what you like in other people. And third, we're going to get out of our way in terms of determining how that participation has to look. We're just going to do it. Money can be an issue, but that's sort of like, again, once we have the thing, we can begin to work on it. And so Spirit is saying, really take the time to explore your interests. You're very much like going at it with a lot of guard. Your guard is up. Like, I don't want to talk in public. I don't want to have, what if they want to speak and I should speak? Spirit is saying, like, okay, so show up and then don't talk. Show up and like, don't understand that. The number of times that I've shown up to stuff where I feel like an idiot, and I think, I'll give my example because whatever, I'm letting this go really long. When the pandemic hit, like, I really didn't understand much about technology. Like, I've been in like this K-hole of craziness with my life, and and I knew that I had to like interact with people, through like Zoom activities, because otherwise I was in a new city, I wasn't gonna make it. I didn't know anyone when the pandemic hit. And so, and I didn't understand that Zoom technology, if you like move, I'm a fidgeter. I'm ADHD autistic. Like, I'm always touching thoughts, moving around. This is how I like operate in the world. And I didn't realize that like the movement will make the camera sort of focus on you. Anyway, I made like a big fool of myself, just not knowing that like I was sort of inappropriately, whatever it was. Don't worry about that, because you might stumble into a group of people associated with your interests who are then intimidated by, your wealth of knowledge, and it's not a good experience, and you just have to move on. But that's like Spirit saying, like, once you start doing this stuff, you discover like what you like, what you don't like, and everything leads you out. Doing nothing doesn't lead you anywhere. And so Spirit is saying, start exploring, even if you have to hold your axe in your hand, even if you have to have your guard up, you're going to explore, and you're going to begin to think about what your interests are, and then you're going to go to things that are having to do with your interests. And Spirit's saying, I will provide. And if it's in Alaska, it's in Alaska, because good thing you can log on and you can interact in this way. this, and this is about chance, you know? And so, you know, to speaking to this, like, well, you know, I've had calamities come that have knocked me into like, into the most hiding place. This is that I don't control the outcomes. But Spirit says you don't control the outcomes, but you do control how strong you are, how powerful are you, what your resolve is, that if you get hurt, you can stand right back up again. You control what you create, you control what you go after, you control the number of opportunities that you get to interact with based on how much you're playing with these things that you're curious about, and interacting with the stuff that you're curious about. Like if you want to be a writer and you've got a bunch of stuff written, like weird writing groups that are, you know, in other places, like, you know, be curious. Maybe you want to join a writing group in like Scotland. You know, you go to Google it and, you know, and see where these Zoom things are happening, and maybe be curious about interacting with a different culture just through the process of looking at this stuff. Let it bloom, and understand that no matter what you encounter in the way of like outcomes that like disappoint you or upset you, like there's something that like it's no match for you. And so this is something that you want to bring into the sense of yourself, is that like, yeah, things have torn you down before, but now that you're like, have a better sense about, you're never going to shine bright without people showing up with like, with an opposition to that, because people want to be where they can hide. And if you're shining bright, you're messing it up for them. So like, once you understand that you can't control that, but you can control how you respond to it, and you can control how you feel about it, then this becomes less toothy. It becomes like a dog that barks but can't bite, you know? And so, and once you know that, you can just, you know, put the earphones in. I don't need to hear you, right? And so Spirit is saying that you want, that's what we mean by faith. That's what we mean by bringing some faith into it, is knowing that you have survived every attack that you've ever had to endure, and that it shut you in was part of the healing process. But now the other part of the healing process is that you can get out of being shut in, and that nobody can shut you in forever. And that's a superpower that you bring with you into next year. Because there's no such thing as success without a level of strategy and breaking yourself out of your own prisons. You know, and Spirit says that, you know, the strategy for you to break yourself out of prison, and that this is like the, you know, prison you create for yourself, is first of all, understanding that we're going to start with your interests and build from there. Even if you have to go with your guard up because you're just not feeling like 100%, just knowing that whatever the outcome is, you've got it. It's worth it, because it's better than making your life, you know, like serving the God of fearing change for the rest of your life. Is going to be a lot of work, miserable, horrible, thankless work, but making a strategy on how it is that you're going to get yourself out of the situation. It's going to take a little bit of planning and some steps, but the gifts, we're going to get into the hope. Now we're going to get into the hope. You know, the hope, it's worth it. And so, you know, with that, I want to just go right into the next section, and we're just going to look at hope. And we're going to look at hope for you in a lot of arenas. And we're almost at an hour and a half, and so it is what it is. You know, whatever. Long readings are long readings. We're going to get to the bottom of some of this stuff, and you're going to feel better. And that's really the point. This is good. Just get a nice long shuffle. While I'm shuffling, if you just want to take your break, and I encourage you to make use of the technology of prayer without thinking of it as being somehow like linked to some organized religion or having anything to do with religion. You know, prayer is simply an intention to communicate with the divine. However you communicate with, you know, whatever you consider divine, even if it's just your higher self or that part of yourself that is the leader. Yeah, I encourage you at this time while I'm shuffling to just, you know, say a little kind of a prayer about what it is that you want, you know, what it is that you're hoping to hear, you know, what it is you've been hoping for, so that we can sort of address some of that or see where that is when we look at hope for you. Let's go ahead and do that. So you really have graduated, my friend. I'm feeling your energy. You really have graduated. You're up for this. You are absolutely and completely ready for this newness. You're ready to take this leap. Spirit's like, you've never been so ready. You've never been so ready. So what are some things that we can look forward to and hope to find as you put this work in on where you're going in the new year? Because Spirit is saying it's not about New Year's resolutions. It's what do I want and how do I give myself what I want? And like looking at it like that. Oh, look how beautiful. Okay. Oh. So, what you can hope for, the subject is this 8 of Swords. And because we're focusing on hope and what's good and what's happening that's good, this is a position that we're in, maybe in this moment of the traditional deck. We see a woman, she's blindfolded, and there's a string of swords around her, but directly in front of her, there's a path out of that it's like a circle of swords, and there's a path out. And what Spirit is showing me is that person has a blindfold on and they feel themselves surrounded and they don't think that there's a way out. And so one of the biggest blessings that's coming in for you this year is the way out. I'm being shown like that this mask, the blindfold is falling off. And as that blindfold falls out and falls off, you're able to take like 1, 2, 3, 4 steps right through and out of the trap that you find yourself in. That seems like this is just where I am, and I know that's what it is. So Spirit is saying, one of the biggest blessings of this year is getting you out of that 8 of Swords that you have been in for a very long time, if not all of your life. And there's justice around this, so Spirit is saying, one of the biggest blessings here is like you coming out of this is the darkness that pushes the light forward. And I've spoken about this in other readings. This is how darkness and light interact. Darkness has a very big role. Challenge has a very big role. It's a big part of you getting stronger. And even if you're like, I don't need to be any stronger. I'm strong enough. I don't need the darkness to bring me any more strength. I agree. You don't, because this is what we're looking at here. We're looking at sort of an end to an end to the hard part and really starting to where the sun is behind you and you've got momentum. So one of the blessings that's coming in is momentum and the sun and moving out of this darkness and being able to see how far the darkness got you, how far the darkness got you into the light. Like this is one of the biggest blessings because we have the Justice card here, is there has been injustice. And so we're about to look at that injustice in the face and say, whoa, I didn't realize that you got me all the way to the finish line. And like, this is really this beauty about what's coming, like this is coming towards you for the new year, is where the darkness has pushed you forward and then realizing just how forward and how much of a justice this distance is for you. And so Spirit is saying, just really realizing like, and I think that you take those 3 or 4 or 5 little steps and you start to see the gains from that, and you start to feel, and the community starts to like fill in around you, and you start to have these interactions and you start to build from it, and then the opportunities come in. It's this way in which you're going to say like, all of that time in the darkness, all of that work that I did, like all of that miserable like strength training that I was forced through, like I didn't know that I'm now this superpower. I didn't know that the darkness brought me this far into the light, and then I have this much to offer. So there's this really beautiful moment of like positive reckoning when you open that door and you step out into that light and realize, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know that this door opened to the top of the mountain. I thought this door was going to open to another mountain that I was going to climb. So there's really something beautiful in that. And with the World card and the Ace of Materials here, the Ace of Coins, I'm just so happy for you. Like this moment of, I thought that the door was going to open into the basin, but it opened to the top of the mountain, and I didn't know that the light got me this far. Look at this world. This is a whole new chapter for you, and I'm very drawn to the prosperity that's there. And that's what this Ace of Pentacles speaks about, the path that you're meant to be on, the path that you're supposed to be on a path. This is the path, this is your path that you've always supposed to be on. That's it. And And so Spirit is basically showing me that like you're opening to this prosperity, this independence, this power, knowing the power within yourself, and these opportunities, the path that you're supposed to be on, operating out of your purpose. This is where it is. You know, this whole operating out of your purpose, new path comes right after opening that door, taking that full leap of faith and realizing, wait, I thought this door was gonna lead to more hardship. I'd been doing all this work all this time. I had no idea that it led me to the top of the mountain, and I'm exiting in a really good place. That's this really good place. It's almost like Spirit saying you're arrived. Let's just open the door. Let's just do it. So, and Spirit saying we open the door with strategy and with a plan. That's the key, and then we push it. You know, that's how we get there. And so there's work to be done this year. Don't fool yourself. But the Spirit is saying the blessing that's coming in is that this work is going to be, this is the Three of Cups. Let me feel it and make sure. Well, no, this is stability. This is doing things with other people, making your plans happen. Their plans are your plans. They're creating together. There's celebration. This is actually more Three of Pentacles. So that's what it feels. It feels earthier. So basically, we're talking about like this is going to take work. You're going to have to put some work into it. It's going to happen really quickly for you if you put the work into it, and it's going to bring you into building something much bigger than you could ever have built on your own, building something that is fun to build, doing work that you want to do, that's in line with your interests, with others who are interested in it, and actually this is what you need. This is the blessing that you've needed all along and that you've wanted all along, and this is what you've been looking for in the way of opportunity, because not only is it going to bring you, you know, opportunity that's going to help support you, it's also going to help support you socially. There's a lot of ways in which this all works together, and so putting in the work gets you there quickly. And so that's what we can expect in the new year and be excited about. Now, this King of Water and this, let me feel it. This is like a, This is so interesting. I love these cards. I'm kind of obsessed with this deck because there's, whoever made them kind of, you know, they put energy into it that actually the minor arcana, like that there's no signifiers. It's because there's all kinds of energy in here, and it actually tells a better story, you know, for me in terms of what comes through than being very specific. And so it's kind of an oracle deck in a way. But what I'm seeing here is this way in which your emotional stability, the mastery that you have over your emotions. This is the group I'm talking to. This is the work that you've done, really becoming a master of your emotions, really becoming sovereign, and really feeling from a depth, but having not overwhelm you. You're going to see in which like that, you're going to learn how that protects you. You're going to learn how that gives you this, like you're represented by these two women here. And so Spirit is saying that no matter what comes towards you, you're going to understand that you control what has access. And then understanding that your emotional intelligence, your depth, and your sovereignty controls access. This makes you feel so safe. It makes you feel, this is where your discernment as being good, you know, you've been tricked to think you can't trust yourself. That's because you think that things have gone badly before, but really you were just looking at some bad alchemy where your own ambition was mixed with fear, and so you took the safe way, or the way that was available right then and there, or the way that was distracting, or the way that seemed really good but like didn't require, like, you know, there's all kinds of ways in which you can take the wrong door based on things that aren't your true intuition, you know, led by your area of giftedness. So Spirit is saying like this is you like figuring out just how powerful you are and how you have the ability to protect yourself in a way that you never have before, and that your boundaries are really what it is for you to learn how to like give access and take it away. And so Spirit is saying you've really gained a level of strength with picking up on stuff. You know, you're going to be you're sharp. You're sharp now in a way that you never were because you did the work. And so when we see like how far the light has gotten you, part of how far the light has gotten you is that when you're out and interacting with people, you're like, well, my light has gotten me to a point where I can see pretty clearly who I can be around and who I can't be around. People who don't resonate with me, you know, I'm going to feel it. You know, I'm going to feel when something is a little bit wrong. There's a way in which all that growth is going to start to pay off just in your interactions and in what you choose to give access and take access away, and understanding that you have all the power over access. You know, you might have to manage it. You know, you might have to give somebody access, just, you know, the part of you that does work for, like, you know, the person, you know, working together is a certain amount of access, hanging out is a certain amount of access, but understanding your, like, the command that you now have over the access that you allow people to either come in and come out. This is you're going to be really impressed with yourself. You're going to be like, ah, that person would have bothered me so much in the past. That situation would have driven me crazy in the past. It's like nothing. It feels like nothing. Like the little kid that, you know, scratches their knee when, you know, the first time it happens, screaming, you know, in agony, and then when they're, you know, 10 and that happens, you get right back up again. This is the experience of all the things that you're fearing. You're going to be like, oh wait, no, that light that pushed me all the way forward got me to this point where I'm just like, skin my knee, who cares, I'm getting right back up again. That's not a thing. But you're afraid of it destroying you like it did when you were an infant. We're going to have that beautiful experience as you do this. You know, what's coming in this year, just knowing that you skin your knee, it's not going to kill you. There's amazing freedom in that, a lot of power in that too. And so, you know, this is where we are, you know, in terms of, we're going to get some oracle cards on this, but this is where we are in terms of you getting your mind and your heart in alignment, which that is why we are at this door, because just beyond this door are all of your manifestations. Everything that has been held in abeyance, waiting for you to be ready to be in a position to receive, and to have the strength to receive, and to have the navigation skills to receive, and to have the relationship towards challenge that allows you to, you know, receive and still grow. We're seeing that happen for you this year. And we're seeing that everything becomes smooth and easy in comparison to the absolute nightmare that has been before, because this is all part of this beautiful miracle and blessing in your life that is coming in, where you open that door and you realize, I am so much stronger, so much more farther ahead. I am so much more capable than I could have ever imagined. And when you realize that, and when you have this harmony between your mind and your heart, when you feel safe being fully yourself, when you feel focused doing the things that you truly love, and when you take that first step into this new environment provides all of this, everything. It's all there. And so Spirit is saying, you know, this is this year where we're getting out of that Eight of Swords, where you're taking these steps and you're moving into this future, and understanding that the world is opening up for you as a result of all of the work that you've done, and really being in this world Ace of Pentacles position, where you're standing in the exact spot and the exact path that is the chapter of the book that you are the main character. And we're entering the part where the things that you need come in really quickly, and the work that you put in pays off and feels good. It's the right kind of putting in work. That all of the work that you've done on yourself makes you much safer to be in relationship to, and much safer for you to determine who you don't want to be in relationship to, and what you don't want to have in your life, that you control all the access, and that this makes you feel powerful and confident. And that power and that confidence feeds into you having an agreement between your mind and your heart, an absence of anxiety because there's no war between the two, and being able to look at all of these manifestations, all these things that are there for you, and actually walk towards them in a way that you get them, that they're there, that they're tangible, and that they're there. And so we're going to get last couple. We're going to get a last couple of cards here. You have what it takes, more than what it takes. You have more. You have everything that you need in the way of power, passion, ability, lovability, likability, all of it. You can walk away from feeling like no one will ever see you clearly. No one ever is going to see you. You're going to begin to take some baby steps towards being seen that include pursuing the things that you care about, that you like, that you're interested in. And you're going to discover that you are not as far away from everybody else as you think, that if you just turn around, if they just turn around, that you're really close to the people that are going to see you. And so you're going to be the first, you know, I don't say that you're going to be the first to turn around, but when you turn around, you tap this person on the shoulder and they get to turn around too, and you both get to meet each other. They're a lot closer than you think. They're just behind you. You know, if you turn around, and turning around means taking that first couple of steps, believing that this person is there, believing that these people are there. You know that they're closer than you realize. That's the message that you're getting. And Spirit is saying you've got everything you need to create these connections and to create these this safe place to have these relationships. You got to take that first step, turn it around, but you're going to find you're so much closer. Look how far the darkness has brought you into the light. You're right here, right here. And so Spirit is kind of assuring you that you're right here and that you've got what you need, that you've manifested this, that these people exist. And that's this manifestation card. You know, look at what you think you've been manifesting. Look what you've actually been manifesting. That's this. The darkness has gotten you so much farther than you could have ever imagined. This is what you thought you were manifesting. This is you toiling over lists of things that you want to bring, qualities and people that you want to bring into your life. They're toiling over lists of like what's gonna, and Spirit is saying, but actually, it's so much bigger. The light has brought you so much farther than you could ever imagine. And then you take that first step, you turn around, start moving towards the things that you love, and you're going to find how close they really, truly are. And Spirit is saying that you will find the tools that you need along the way. Spirit is saying not only is it about what you're able to create for yourself and what you've manifested for yourself and the power that you have in those manifestations and the power that you are to survive all of this stuff. Not only is it that, but thinking about, well, how will I get the resources? How will I get the opportunity? Like, when will I have the time? Is it going to require money? I don't know. That Spirit is saying, I want you to open up to understanding that every step you take towards your purpose, Spirit is saying, I'm taking a step towards you. And and this is the grace and this is the faith in being in your purpose. And being in your purpose is always about what you love most in life. Because that's the turning signal. That's the directional right there. You know, and Spirit is saying, you know, you start to take those steps and the tools you'll find them. They're going to be placed there. They're going to be on that path because it's your path and the tools will be waiting. And so you bring that faith into it. And so it's not only just about what you can provide for yourself, but it's about what Spirit wants to provide for you. And then every step of the way that you're taking that step, because if you're not taking steps on the path that you're supposed to be on, your higher self isn't going to let you die. Your higher self isn't going to let you rot, you know, at the bottom of the well, because the fear is too overwhelming. Your higher self is going to push you towards that crack that you made in the door, and where there's light. Your higher self isn't going to enable you. And so once you understand that your manifestations are in lockstep with the effort you put into moving towards them, then you know the Spirit is saying that's what it means to trust that I'll meet you halfway, that you'll get what you need, that what you need is in alignment with what you're doing. And when what you're doing is your path, it's going to be there. And so we're going to end the reading there because it's gone for quite some time. And so this is what we're looking at in the year ahead. There's some work to be done, and we're going to do it. I'm just trying to think, is there anything else that Spirit wants to bring through quickly? Because I have this deck here. That's why. You know, your Three of Cups and the Lovers. We didn't shuffle this, just sitting here. Maybe it was from the last, you know, I always clear my decks before I start, but yeah, I mean, let's just leave it there. You know, this is really, if this is what you've been praying for and hoping for, you know, if this is what you've been trying to manifest, a community and someone to share your life with, it's not that far away. Let's take some steps in that direction. And so we're going to end there. I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you again soon. And I do encourage you to take a look at your chart. You know, that's a fun thing to do. And look at where you have the different elements, because I'm going to do one for fire, and we're going to do for earth, and we're going to do for air, and everything is for you. You know, Spirit's going to meet your needs all the way and all these things. And so it's probably good to check back and see where, like if you're, you know, fire moon, I've got a Leo moon. That's my heart, you know, so like thinking about what emotional landscape, this is what we did. We did water, which is emotional landscape. And so fire is going to be the passionate, you know, ambition landscape. air is going to be like the thinking landscape, and earth is going to be like the practical landscape. So I do encourage you to look, you know, come back for the other readings for the other elements, because this is technomancy. It's a type of divination that is different than divinations. You know, tarot reading for collectives is actually its own type of divination. It's not something else. So it's kind of like pulling a card, and the card is the reading that you happened upon on your FYP, or, you know, just scrolling on YouTube. So if you're here from that, welcome, welcome. All right, let's end this before it gets way too long. I thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I hope this was helpful.